Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am back again with Céline, matching of course. And if you're new, welcome to our channel. And today's video, as you could probably tell, is a video where I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of having a teacup-sized dog. And so if you are interested, please keep watching. As always, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's just jump right into this because we have a lot to talk about. So, couple of disclaimers first. I did not get Céline under the impression that she was going to be a teacup-sized dog. Sorry, girly. All of her siblings were normal size. She happened to be a decent amount smaller, and a lot of times the really small puppies can be the ones that are bigger than the normal size puppies, but she stayed really small. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Céline is almost 4 years old and she is 3 pounds, so she's not getting any bigger. And I don't condone going out looking for a teacup dog because teacup dogs don't exist technically. But what you usually get with that is a dog that's bred to be abnormally small, and so they end up having a lot of issues or they're just not raised properly. So I don't totally condone it, but for those of you that maybe have one or you really did want a dog like this tiny, I do want to at least help you, or if you're considering getting a dog this small. I know that I can sit here and preach all day long, hey, I don't know if you should go get one, but let's be honest, people love abnormally large and abnormally small dogs. So there's probably somebody right now who's reserving a really tiny dog, and that's cool because I love her to death. I wouldn't trade her for the world, but I just want to give you a little bit of information before you get one, or if you just got one, just things to keep in mind. So overall, as far as pros go, obviously teacup micro-sized dogs are super, super adorable. I love Céline. Everybody that comes in, I'm not just saying this like because she's my dog. Yes, I think she's the most adorable dog in the world, but she's also my dog. So I get that not everybody's going to feel that way, but I can say that every time we go out, people are just like obsessed because she's really small and she's got these clothes on and like she looks like a doll baby. And that's the whole point, right? And so obviously that's a pro, you know what I mean? If you're gonna have a little dog, they gotta be cute. They're just gonna be cute. I don't care what breed they are. They're gonna be cute. But they fit everywhere. That's one thing that I love. I didn't think I would worry about it as much, but now that it's like convenient for me, Céline fits everywhere. I don't care where I'm going, what I'm doing, literally anything. She fits everywhere. I think the only thing that she doesn't fit in is like my Chanel wallet on chain, which is like literally a wallet on chain style bag. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. But that's probably the only thing she doesn't fit into. Otherwise, she fits into everything. She fits into anything, and it's absolutely great because if I want to take her, I don't have to worry about, oh, am I gonna have enough space? She's gonna fit. She's just gonna fit. So I think that's a pro. Another pro, which I don't even know if I benefit from because I'm one of those people that like overdoes it with like buying things for her, is that smaller dogs tend to be a little bit cheaper, especially if they don't have all the health issues one would typically have. A tiny dog like this would typically have. If they don't have all those health issues, then you are saving money. Their food is okay. You want to get up here? She's just sitting on the table. Her food is definitely a lot cheaper, especially doing her homemade food now. Her like walking gear and stuff are cheaper. Her flea and tick and heartworm are cheaper. I know they base the price of those off of the weight and like how much serum they're supposed to get or how big of like a little chunk they're supposed to get. So things like that are cheaper. Not that they really mean anything because I feel like when you have like little fashion dogs kind of this size, you're buying so many accessories and toys and everything that you end up spending the same amount of money anyways. But if you're just doing like basic simple things, they cost less. The bowls cost less, the blankets cost less, the beds cost less. I get it's like less product, but in general, it's a bit cheaper for like all the basic stuff. The next thing is the exercise. If you are somebody who is not super big on exercising or going on runs or walks, hi, I'm not afraid to admit it. I am not the type of person that if I had a dog that needed all that exercise, yes, I would get up and do it. But I don't. So I don't. So I totally benefit from the fact that Céline gets her little bit of exercise. If we go on longer walks for my personal exercise, I stick her in her stroller and we keep walking. But otherwise, they don't do a ton of exercise or running around. They'll run around your house or your room or something, and then she's out of energy in like maybe on a good day 10 minutes. And before like she might need food so her hypoglycemia doesn't kick in. So that's a pro, at least for somebody like myself. Next pro is the bathroom. You have more options for the bathroom. Not that you can't have a bigger dog that uses something like a diaper, which I don't recommend for any dog unless they absolutely need it. But a diaper or like a potty pad, you're typically not going to have like a golden retriever in your house doing that unless they need it. But for dogs like Céline, she doesn't pee outside. I can count on my hand how many times she's actually peed outside. And she goes in the house. It's fine. It works for her. She's still on her little schedule. She goes when she needs to, but I don't have to stand outside at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure she goes to the bathroom. And so if you're somebody who would like that convenience, then a smaller dog is probably good for you as well. For travel, I know that a lot of the airlines have kind of done away with the ESAs and like allowing certain pets or dogs or cats or turtles or whichever your ESA may have been. They've kind of done away with that. It's mainly just service dogs now. Not for all airlines, but for most, I've noticed that. But if you have a smaller dog and they're your pet, you can actually have them travel with you in cabin. Most people already know this, but I feel like it's a pro if you're worried about your dog being okay, not being stressed out, not getting sick or anything like that under the plane, because that's something that I worry about. I've never had her on a plane, but I would absolutely worry about that if I had to put my dog under a plane. So that's something to think about as well. If you live in a smaller space, like if you live in an apartment or just like in general a smaller space, having a smaller dog is probably a pro because you don't have to take them out for exercise as much. They're not going to be cramped up in your living space, and you're also not going to be like bumping into each other in your living space, meaning they have enough room to roam around, you have enough room to roam around. If you live in an apartment, like if you live in New York City, you can get one of those grass pads, and if you have a balcony, stick it out there. If you don't, stick it in your house and then clean it up as you need to, and you can still take them outside to the bathroom if you need to, obviously, but the whole point is that the option is there. If you do have smaller space living, more convenience living, a smaller dog is going to be more beneficial for that. And I think this is very much geared towards these really tiny micro-sized dogs, is the affection level. I have noticed between, which if you haven't watched the intro video, I've kind of went a little bit more into having bigger dogs like Chow Chows and Rottweilers and German Shepherd mixes throughout life to having little tiny like Yorkies. But from my personal experience, these little tiny guys like this one, a lot more affectionate than like your average size Yorkie or just like a bigger dog in general. Not to say that bigger dogs are not as affectionate, because I know tons of them, they just want to love you, okay? Dogs want to love you. But because most of these dogs have health issues, or just like you naturally are holding them all the time, or they need to be handled all the time, they're typically going to want to be on you, licking you, making sure you're around more, which may mean they may develop something like separation anxiety. But it's one of those things that like it just comes naturally with the lifestyle that you have to have with them. So I would say that's a pro, just because I have no problems having Céline all over me. That might be a con for you if you don't want your dog to be like all up on you all the time, but these little guys typically are because you're constantly handling them and caring for them like a newborn. And so that would lead me into our cons, which, yes, they do need more attention. They do need more of your time taking care of them, feeding them more often, taking them to the bathroom more often. If they have health issues because they were improperly bred, then yes, they're going to need more attention. And if you don't have the time, or maybe you just don't want to, there's nothing wrong with admitting to yourself that you don't want to do that. That's good that if you admit it to yourself, because then you don't get yourself in a situation that you later don't want to be in, and then you have to rehome your pet. But that might be a con for you if you don't want to deal with that. I hope, like, it doesn't sound mean. Like, it's not mean. If you're sitting there saying, no, I don't want to deal with that, it's not mean. But it's something that you should think about before you go and get a dog like this, especially if you have an already full schedule, because Céline takes up a lot of my free time. Yes, because there are things that I want to do with her, but also because she has a lot of needs. That also brings me to my next con, is that typically these teacup micro-sized dogs have a lot of health issues. Céline, luckily, because she wasn't bred to be this small, she just ended up being this small, has minimal amount of health issues. I think a lot of it is because their organs and like their normal bodily functions are not developed to the fullest potential, or developed as much as a dog that is in their normal breed size. So as far as Celine's like issues, she mainly has a lot of stomach issues, and she doesn't have a luxating patella, but like she can't walk very long because she'll start to like limp on it, like it'll give her a little bit of issue. Oh, her hypoglycemia. So she was 1/2 pound when I got her, because again, she was a lot smaller than her siblings. And so she needed to eat every single hour, or she was going to go into her hypoglycemia. We can have a whole nother video about that, but basically if their blood sugar gets too low because they haven't eaten, or they've just deteriorated it from running around, they get like really shaky, they walk like they're drunk, they like shake in the corner, and they start to like, they may actually have a seizure. The long-term issue with that is they could develop brain damage, like permanent brain damage over time, and that is super scary. Also, them having seizures, the whole experience is very scary, especially if you've never seen it before, but it's definitely scary when it just becomes like a long-term issue. So I try to avoid that. There are plenty of ways to avoid that. We can have a whole separate conversation about that if you want, but these are just some of the things that Céline does deal with, specifically because she is this small. Other dogs can have it too. Hypoglycemia is typically not something larger dogs get, or dogs that are in their normal size get, but she gets it. They also need to be watched a lot. Like, because we leave out, Céline can't use the stairs. Her legs are too little. She just doesn't use the stairs. We have a balcony, a big foyer and like a balcony in my house, so I can't let her run around, like roam free upstairs by herself or anything, because she might actually slip through the bars and like fall. Like, nobody wants that. Even in like the main level where we don't have any of that, she may get kind of caught behind something, or like hurt herself, or something falls on her. She's very fragile because she's so small, so you have to constantly watch them. These are like daily things. These are just like, in general, daily needs and concerns that you just have to think about when you have dogs this small. And so if you are not into that, do not get a little teeny tiny dog, because it's very common for them. Another common thing that people may not think is as much of an issue as it may become for you is a picky eater. I know bigger dogs can be picky eaters. These little tiny dogs are so picky. Within the first 2 or 3 days that I had Céline, she had gone through 5 or 6 foods. I can't exactly remember, but until we found one that she would consistently eat. And it becomes an issue when they are this small, because if she doesn't eat, again, she gets sick. So it's this constant battle of like, you need to eat, but you don't want to eat this, so then I gotta give you something else. And then it's one of those things where you don't want to develop that sense of, oh, if I don't eat this, she'll give me something else. But at the same time, I'd rather her just kind of develop that than not eat anything. That's something that can be like annoying to people. So, like I said, it doesn't really bother me because Céline is like my whole world, and it just doesn't bother me. Like, I'm used to that. I'm used to taking care of animals like that. So, it doesn't totally bother me, but for somebody that doesn't have time or like has other things going on that they just don't want to be worried about that, you may want to think twice about getting a dog this small. And another thing health-wise is their trachea. So as much as big dogs should use harnesses for like pulling and control, really tiny dogs like this should use a harness, because if they pull on like a collar on their leash, you could collapse their trachea, and then they sound like a dying duck when they're barking. All right, they might not sound like a dying duck, but they don't sound like a normal dog. And they also like could choke more. I know that Céline, like, she has some issues, but I always use a harness on her when I use her leash. So I think that's more of just a developmental thing. Her airway may not be fully open, so she chokes more often. And that also could affect, like, you have to sit there and watch them eat. You have to constantly make sure, like, if she's barking and running around too much, she might start choking. So it's a lot, like, as far as the cons go in general, it's just a lot of like newborn energy, if you will. So like, if having a normal puppy is like having a toddler, like a 2-year-old, a crazy like 2-year-old that you have to watch, but like you can also give them some space or give them things to do. Having a really tiny teacup micro-sized puppy is like having a newborn with health issues. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I love those little tiny like newborns that are in the NICU, because their hands and everything is just so tiny. But that's what I mean. That's why people love dogs this small, because everything is so micro sized. But with that, yes, there's nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, if you're not ready to be committed to that, like, this is it. She's got her issues. She's as big as she's gonna get. She's super tiny, and these are her issues. These are the things that you're gonna have to do every day, or at least that I do every day. And I would consider myself pretty lucky because she is tiny, but she doesn't have nearly as many health issues as I know other people with dogs, even up to like 4 pounds, have, that luckily Céline doesn't have. So I would consider myself lucky, but these are things to really, really, really think about when you are thinking about getting these micro-sized dogs. And we can have a totally other conversation about breeders, good breeders, bad breeders, breeders of these teacup dogs. That's a whole different conversation we can get into. But I just wanted to give you like the pros and cons of owning and taking care of a really tiny sized dog. And so with that, I hope this was super helpful. If you have any other questions or anything, please let me know. Like, this is like my thing. I love trying to help people and at least prevent like bad situations for people. So if you have any questions or you want to have a conversation, just please, oh, please let me know in the comments or a DM or anything if you don't want to put it public, and we can talk about it. So thank you all for watching so much. Céline is tired per usual. And we will see you in another video. Bye guys.